Hi, we're going to take a look at 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12. There was a user that asked a question about one of how some of the features in the LDGNT and HDNT fit together. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that text now, and hopefully we can answer that question. We'll go ahead and read the verse in English first in the ESV over here in the High Definition New Testament. For our boast is this, the testimony of our conscience, that we behaved in the world with simplicity and godly sincerity, and not by earthly wisdom, but by the grace of God, and supremely so toward you. Now the question is, you got a couple. You see the different markup. There's the arrows here. This stands for a forward-pointing reference, and basically this is an extra pronoun, typically that's referring ahead to a target, which is generally going to be a whole clause or a part of a sentence. And you can see that you've got both of those sets of symbols in both Greek and English, the Lexham Discourse Greek New Testament and the High Definition New Testament. And based on the English, it makes it sound like, and this is what the readers or the user's question was isn't the this referring to the testimony of our conscience? And that kind of makes sense. And he was saying, doesn't this kind of break up the flow of the text? Well, there's actually a couple different things going on. And in order to understand that, let's take a look just generally at how sentences tend to work. The most common kind of sentence is what's called a topic comment, where you have a topic, in this case, the reason of our boasting, or our boast in English, and then the comment that's made about it. So it may be easier actually just to look at the earlier verse. So you have you as the topic, and then the comment that's made is must also help us by prayer. So topic comments are the most common strategy or type of sentences in English and Greek and most languages. And that's because we tend to introduce what we're going to talk about, and then we make some comment about it. And so the reason why the forward-pointing reference and target draws extra attention to it is because instead of having the topic and then making the comment about it, the comment is actually delayed to the next clause, which in this case is this subordinate clause introduced by that or hoti. And to make things more complicated, we have what in the Greek analysis we call a right dislocation, and in the HDNT it's simply called characterization. And what that is we said we had the topic, our boasting, and the right dislocation is basically a restatement or a recharacterization of our boasting. Like in other words, or that is, that kind of a parenthetical type comment where it's basically restating it in a different way to constrain you or to get you to think about what had been our boasting as something different. And so the reason for the boasting is not the testimony of our conscience, but rather our boasting is being reframed as, in other words, the testimony of our conscience is this. Now, if we had eliminated the forward-pointing reference, it would have read something like, our boast is that we have behaved in the world with simplicity and godly sincerity. That would have been kind of the standard default way of making a topic comment sentence. But what we have instead is this delay based on the forward-pointing reference. And then we also have this recharacterization of our boast as the testimony of our conscience. So to kind of illustrate how that right dislocation or the characterization rephrases things, we could say the testimony of our conscience is that we behaved in the world with simplicity and godly sincerity. So these two things, the testimony of our conscience and our boast, are both referring to each other, and this is the comment that's made about those two concepts that's referring ahead to the balance of this verse. So the thing to keep in mind about this kind of approach, and especially language in general, is that language is messy and complex. And so even though we've come up with these categories to label things, they're not strict black and white categories. They're fuzzy, but generally speaking, a right dislocation is not going to be referring back to a pronoun. At times it does, but generally it's going to refer to a noun phrase, where when you have a forward pointing reference that's a pronoun, it's going to be referring to a whole clause, not just the noun phrase at the end. So I know that it can be somewhat confusing, but that's in essence my read on things, and you're very welcome to disagree. But the point is, you've got a bunch of different things going on. You've got the restatement of the topic, which is our boast, and in essence, in other words, the testimony of our conscience, and then the comment that's being made about them, about these things, is disclosed then in the hoti clause or the that clause that follows.